All right, young man, you should be good.
Thanks, Jeff. Call the Franklin Township Planning Commission meeting of December 5th, 2024. Call to order at 7 o'clock. First order of business is public comment. Being no public comment, we'll move on to approval of November minutes.
I reviewed the minutes that Stacy had done, and I think they were circulated to the PC. I didn't have any issues, and if there's no issues, then we'll recommend for approval. Comments?
I don't have any.
Then should I recommend
Mark,
for
you were the
approval?
only other one there.
Yeah, no, I don't have any comments either.
Should I recommend we approve the minutes?
I'll
All
second.
right. Great. Any comments? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. All right, moving on to solar ordinance. I thought we'd use the red line from Guy as a template for our discussion. I guess even before we get into that, comment by comment. Chuck, did you have any questions, having not been at last month's meeting?
No, I think I've caught up.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to try and share that red line version?
I think that would be the best.
Can you see it?
Yep.
See it.
I might have to run and get my glasses, but
That's better.
There we go.
yeah, I think if you just center it, we got it.
Okay. You have to tell me because I got a lot going on here with Zoom. So center
We'll
it.
move it a little
There you
bit to
go.
the right. Colder.
That's all I can do, young man.
Can you move it the other way?
Well, that's to the right,
No, go the other way.
and
Vince,
that's
right?
to the left.
And that's as far as you go?
That's all I can go.
So
That's
maybe we
because
make it
guys-
smaller.
Because the guy's comments, I think, are taking up space.
Yes, I would agree because we got the red line comments and his notes out to the right.
Right.
Well, for myself, I'll just pull up my copy from the email. I just won't be able to see all your lovely faces. Going through it, did anybody have an issue with the suggested definition of applicant?
No, I thought that was fine.
Looks good.
Good.
Yeah.
And so maybe just to be fair, any suggestions then on section 1 definitions?
I didn't have anything at that section, no.
Okay. Then moving on to section 2 regulations, accessory use solar energy systems. Suggested changes being contents of novel solar technology.
I like the way he put in de minimis and waiver. That I think that makes it cleaner than exceptions. So I thought that was okay.
I don't know if anybody else, but I guess I learned something today that as long as we put waiver in a zoning ordinance, we can do waivers as long as it's in the ordinance.
We've
So-
done that in the past. So it's not the first time, and I had forgotten about it, but it's a valid point. Once you use the word waiver, it helps a lot for flexibility.
So is there any, go ahead.
No, it's just a nitpick. De minimis is misspelled. It's MINIMIS. I know it should looks like it should be US, but it's IS legally.
Oh, didn't know that.
Neither
That's
did
why
I.
there's that red line underneath of it.
Oh, it's a spell checker doing it. Yeah, okay.
Very de minimis, but important.
MINIM. It's not minimums. It's minimis. MINIMIS.
We'll make it right, Zach, in the end.
Again, it's a nitpick. Just wanted to throw it in there.
No, you're absolutely right. Stacy's great with this, and she'll take note of it.
Great. Now's the time to make the changes. Anything else in one? Section 2A1.
Okay.
And then in the rest of that section, 2 or 3, 4. What did I do?
I didn't have any problems with what changes he made in section 3.
We had alluded to it someplace else. He just brought it into this paragraph
Right.
also about the woodlands.
Right.
Good. Mark, if you don't mind going to the next section while I try to bring up my copy again, I closed it out by accident.
Sure. You mean number 4 on, what is it? Accessory use solar energy. In the event the system is anticipated or capable of generating electricity, which may be used by or interconnected to offsite utility company, the applicant shall also show that the relevant utility has been provided written notice of the project and the utility has approved in writing any interconnection. I think it's a great idea to put it in there.
I agree, because that was something that came up in the last discussion. So I think
Yeah.
that's
Because I think that as we move forward with increasing amounts of solar and wind, at some point, the utility might not have to accept it because they can't, because of their infrastructure. And I think that anybody who puts one of these in needs to know that if they can or cannot, essentially sell it back to the utility before they do it, because it may change what people are doing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's see. B, principal use of solar energy system. He just changed on number 7, woodland disturbance, which is consistent with the language above. Anybody have any other comments as we roll through here, in addition to what he's redlined?
I think it's fine.
Let's see.
We're good.
Number 12, certifications and inspections, annual inspection report. Let me see what he did here.
So remember last month we talked about what would be I guess consistent or what would be relevant for inspections from an independent professional. He put 3rd anniversary of the date on which the township certified the facility ready for operation. We originally had it annually.
Yeah. We never got any feed. Longwood doesn't own their facility or manage it, so they didn't know how often things get inspected.
They
Just to
did,
let everybody know.
correct, Dr. Hoffman, and I am waiting to hear back from someone within that organization that owns it. So I don't have a good answer tonight yet.
Right.
And Jeff, I tried to call Nate many times and he just never returned my call. I also talked to somebody where I work. They said that generally I guess he was the sales guy and he just said, we just make sure that the inspection's done right before it gets turned on. He said, I don't know how many times we inspected after that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's up to us to figure out what we want to do. I think this is, I guess what I'm reading here, it doesn't, there's no inspection, right? I guess there's got to be an inspection before it gets turned on, right?
Yes,
Right.
And then Guy put the 3rd anniversary. I don't know where he got that. He just, I'm not sure.
the county recommended anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and I think Guy just took the 3rd.
But
Right.
he's not, this is not saying, this says an annual inspection report, and then it's doesn't start until the 3rd anniversary. All that's doing is kicking out the first 2. So if we wanted it every 3, we have to change the language. The way I'm reading it.
Oh, see,
Mm.
okay. Wait.
Right. So the one, I'm not saying I'm proposing this, but it's a lot easier to change it from annual to every 3 years if we find it onerous than to go from every 3 years to annual if we find that it's not adequate. That's one way to look at it.
So do we want to put in here that after the initial inspection?
Ken,
Or is there somewhere? Hang on, let me scroll up a little bit on my copy. Yeah, I think in the beginning, annual inspection, whenever,
Well, isn't part of the permit process, isn't there a UNO process where it's inspected before it can be used?
yes,
Isn't that automatic?
yeah,
Yes.
okay. So we don't have to reiterate it here.
I don't know if we have to rewrite the first inspection, because I think that's implied in the permitting process, but we could say then after the system is started up, every 2, 3 years, 3 years are fine with me. It's whatever the group feels is appropriate.
So then you need to change the language of section B to say something like periodic inspection report rather than annual.
Yeah.
Semi-annual would be, is semi-annual every other year? Or is that twice a year?
I think
That's twice a year.
biannual.
Biannual.
Biannual is twice a year, semi-annual is once every 2 years, right?
Yeah,
Semi-annual.
so you could change it to semi-annual. I don't know about 3 years, what the language is there, but we literally could put a semi-annual inspection report in the second line. And it would be, that kind of aligns up. So you got your first inspection on startup, and then on the 3rd anniversary, you've got your second inspection. Next one's at 5 years and 7 years and so on. I mean, that kind of aligns.
Well, do you want to do it that way, or want to do it in the second year? Then just by using biannual at the startup, that just takes care of it and makes it 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever.
I think that's easier to understand. It's
That's
just,
what I think. Yeah.
Biannual,
Yeah.
unless Zach has the Latin for every 3 years.
That'd be triennial.
And can you spell it?
TRIENNIAL.
I can't check you.
That's triennial. Every 4 years is quadrennial.
all right,
Well,
gentlemen, so we're
And it's
going with
Greek, not Latin.
biannual? What are we going with?
yeah, right at the beginning of the paragraph, right? Biannual inspection report. And then I think we can get rid of not later than 30 days following each anniversary. Get rid of all the red line.
Right.
30 days following each anniversary.
Is everybody comfortable with biannual? I mean, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, every 2 years sounds fine.
Seems reasonable. Yeah.
I think fine. We're just ignoring the county, but I think it's a minor thing. since I don't think anybody, so far we haven't had any good expert opinion to say how often it should be inspected.
That's right.
So, yeah, let's go with biannual and move on.
Did it say certified? Who's doing the inspection?
Where are we, Chuck?
Go back up to that right there.
Independent professional engineer.
Okay. All right, that's generic enough. I was starting to be concerned that if we can't find anybody that's done this, who's going to do the inspection? But that's generic enough that they'll be able to find somebody.
They go back up, Jeff. Just there's a red
Yes.
line in A. Nope, a little too far. In decommissioning, 16.
Yeah, we talked about this too, like the useful life.
Yeah, what he says is ceasing operating, and that basically gets into the 100-watt bulb issue again. We could say ceases operating profitably, implying that if it's not profitable, then they really can't afford any maintenance to keep the system up and running properly. I don't know what to do there. Since we don't have a good definition of useful life at this point, do we?
No, but I think we can met it. I'll tell you, one of the things that we could use is a measurement of the capacity factor when it goes into service. Again, I don't know what percentage to use, but if there's a capacity, if it's a 50 megawatt field, and it goes to 10 megawatts, is it still profitable? I would say maybe yes. So that's 20, but maybe if it gets down to 10%, at least we can measure. If we use a percentage of original capacity, we can at least measure what that is. Would they argue that it's still profitable at 10% of its original capacity? I don't know.
We could go a different route.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
If they need to submit a semi-annual report and it's no longer profitable, they're going to stop doing that. So couldn't we just stipulate that when they stop submitting their report or the report fails, then
I think the inspection report is just that it's not broken, right? Something's not wrong. Does the inspection report include profitability? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think the inspection report has to do with operability. You can put out a report and still be unprofitable. It
Right.
might be cheaper putting out a report and being unprofitable and then decommissioning it and shutting it down.
yeah, what's wrong with them doing that? As long as they continue to inspect it.
As long as they keep maintaining it.
Yeah. What's
Well, that's the
Adequate
thing is, will they
inspection.
keep maintaining it?
well,
Hello?
that's the point is that they're
Yes,
not going to pass an inspection if they're not maintaining it.
Well, could you make the
Uh,
decommissioning contingent
yeah,
on that
I'm
inspection
trying to-
report and say,
I
you
got
know, at 2 years after the last completed inspection, it has
Yeah.
to be decommissioned or something?
That's what I'm thinking. Then we don't have to worry about trying to determine what we feel is an ending point. It's just a thought. I mean, I
No,
think
it's a
that,
good thought. How about leaving it the way it is, where it says 6 months after an acceptable or appropriate or whatever the wording is inspection? You know, if it's a deficient inspection, then 6 months later it has to be decommissioned.
getting hung up on that.
well, they have 2 years.
Well, they have 2 years between inspections, but suppose the inspection report comes in and says, you know, this thing isn't operating and they're not fixing
Gotcha.
it. Therefore, we need to have it shut down because it's not operational.
Okay, so the 6 months is after a failed inspection,
Right.
right? Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So, for fleet
What
commission.
what if we left ceasing operations or 6 months after failed inspection?
That'd be fine from
Yeah.
my perspective.
So what were those words you used?
Yeah, so one example would be they would disconnect from the utility. Then we don't need to wait for a failed inspection then also. We either or would work in that case.
I was on acquisition teams when I was working, and I tell you, you won't believe some of the things companies would do to officially be operating to avoid the costs of not operating.
Mhm.
So you really have to put some nails into that one and lock it down. Otherwise, they'll stretch it out for as long as they can. It's harder these days, but I'm sure it can still be done.
I mean,
Yeah,
can I
I
ask
was
just
in the same vein as you, Chuck, thinking, well, if they're connected and they have an agreement with the utility company and then the utility company says this isn't worth being connected anymore, but it still might be worthwhile to that landowner to have it operational for their own uses, but not to the utility.
I mean,
So,
can I ask from a philosophical perspective, what does it matter if it's in operation or not? If the thing is passing its safety inspections and is physically present, why do we care if it's in operation or not? As long as it's safe, then why not leave it?
Hey, guys. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I just so happen to have Guy Donatelli call me, our solicitor.
okay.
So I would be happy to put him on speakerphone if the chairman so desires.
Did Guy call because he's still concerned with some of his comments, or did
He,
totally unrelated?
that's just the way he is. He was checking up.
Okay.
That's just the way he is.
I think that, it's great timing, if you want to tie Guy
Okay.
in, because this is about, I think, the only hangup we all have.
Okay. Well, be patient. Let me try and get him on speakerphone. Hold on. I know, but I'm trying to maneuver this so the planning commission can hear it. So I'm going to hold this up. So say hello, Guy. Hello, Guy.
Guy,
Hi, Guy. This is Dave Hoffman. Thanks for joining in.
No, I'm happy to participate.
Good. So we're in section 16, decommissioning and financial security, section A. Your suggestion was to insert ceases operating. And one, we're having some conversation about what ceasing operating is. And we're getting to the point where we thought maybe inserting 6 months after a failed inspection or ceases operating.
I think that's fine. And I got the ceasing operating language from the County Planning Commission because I think you will recall that your Planning Commission thought perhaps we could include language that said end of its useful life. And I think the county thought ceasing operation was a better term and event to use. And I don't have any problem with a failure to cure an NOV within 6 months as triggering decommission.
Yeah, the reason we had an issue, or I had an issue with ceasing operating is if you had a 10 megawatt solar panel and it was down to 1% of effective capacity and it was operating a 100-watt bulb, it'd still be operating, but it sure wouldn't be profitable and there wouldn't be any money to put into maintaining it. And I've seen companies delay the decommissioning of an operation because of the costs associated with that. So we're trying to kind of nail down what the end of the useful life is. And it could be ceasing operating on a profitable basis or something of that order. But by doing it with this 2-year inspection. And if it fails the 2-year inspection, then we demand that they shut it down 6 months after that failure. Because ceasing operating leaves a lot of wiggle room for somebody who wants to play a game.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you. I was just trying to accommodate the county planning commission's language in its.
Oh, I know. I fully understand where you're coming from because we saw that as well. I've just been involved in my career with companies which did not shut down operations because they didn't want to, because once you shut it down, it brought on other regulatory issues and higher costs. So
Right.
they would keep a warehouse operating with.
We can leave the language in that regard as it was.
No, because we have to define useful life. So ceasing operating or not passing a 2-year inspection, that'd be acceptable, I think. We just don't have the right words for it.
No, I think we did.
I mean, if you just read it, the record property owner at their expense is the entity responsible for complete decommissioning of the system within 6 months after notice of violation and failure to cure. That's it. The ceases operating thing is irrelevant. Just saying if it fails inspection, you have 6 months, and you don't intend to fix it, you have 6 months to decommission it.
Then that's okay too.
So
I
how
think the
does it get
ceasing operation happens in between those 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it allow the opportunity to start decommissioning even prior to a 2-year inspection? That's why I like both.
I agree, David, and I think this 16A puts the onus on, the owner to provide his reporting to us. And we don't have, in this section, we don't have an avenue to go out there and inspect when we wanted to. Like if we wanted to go inspect because we haven't heard from them or something like that, maybe we should add something. Maybe our township engineer goes out there and looks at it. Can we reserve the right to do that somewhere?
Well, we could just put 3 conditions: ceasing operating, not passing the 2-year inspection.
Hold on,
and the township engineer doesn't.
Hold on just a minute, guys, trying to get a word in.
Well, I thought somebody asked me a question, and I was going to say I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but if you wanted to bake in some language that would allow an inspection by our code enforcement officer or township engineer, you could certainly do that. If you thought that was something you wanted to do. That was not contained in the review by the county. As a matter of fact, the county thought that our annual inspections could be maybe closer to 2 to 3 years. Is my recollection. I don't have a letter in front of me.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay.
And Guy, earlier in this call, we changed it to every 2 years for inspection.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I guess I keep coming back to the draft you're looking at now. It is a confluence of 2 sets of thoughts. One was from was from the county. We're certainly not wedded to own laws if there are other good ideas that you wanted to draft into it. I would avoid profitability because I never know what that means. I've been in litigation where profitability are, and my accountant can say it's profitable and can say profitability go to the soft part of the home. So I would stay away.
All right, well,
So, looking at it one more time, if you read through all of Section A the way Guy has it written now, I think it covers the inspection as well, because the 2-year inspection would be and it fails as a notice of violation. And if they didn't cure that notice of violation, the 2-year inspection, then it's decommissioned. I think we have it
Yeah.
without changing anything.
Okay,
Jim,
that's fine.
Jim, I don't think we have to worry about sending somebody out. Because you're gonna have an engineer that blesses this. It's not, we gotta trust that it's not gonna fail in 6 months. So then we're almost halfway through the 2 years anyway.
Right.
I mean, otherwise, we're trusting the engineer that he says it's in good shape and that it's,
Yeah,
if. you
I
know what I'm
understand,
saying?
Chuck. I
Yeah.
was just saying, maybe we should have an option that, let's just say, the beginning of this month, they got one of their inspections done and it passed. And then in January, we had the worst ice and snowstorm that ever happened, and it destroyed many things. We don't have an option to go out and see if that solar field is still operating for 2
Yeah.
more years.
Yep. As soon as you questioned me, I was like, yep, okay. Things happen. So literally 2 days after the inspection report goes in, tornado hits. Yeah.
Right.
And then we have to sit on our hands for 2 years. That's
That's what I was saying.
problematic.
So
Yeah.
we'll put in
I
a third
agree.
condition of the township and engineer inspecting it on our schedule.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
we don't want to do it
give them like a
regularly, do
24-hour notice or something, or I don't know what you want to
Yeah.
write, but
So could we say if, for our township engineer can enter and inspect for cause or something of that order? And then cause kind of leaves an open door as to what cause is.
I think
But
we have to go back up to the inspection section where we talk about for that. Or before we go, are we finalized on decommission section A to leave it the way Guy has suggested?
except for what Jim wanted to add.
But I
That would be,
think my addition is double. Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Guy. Say that again.
No, I think the decommissioning section is fine. I think there's some clarity. I mean, it's easy to interpret and to enforce. My advice is going to be send this back to the county after we modify it. And I really tried to be true to the intention of the thoughts that we had at the time. And I tried to accommodate the aspects of the county's recommendations. I did not address the zoning districts because I felt if I began to address the zoning districts, it would deviate from the thought that UMen had with respect to the application of the ordinance. But I think the decommissioning section is fine the way it reads, and I read it when I did some minor revisions this afternoon. I guess around 4 o'clock or so.
but did you hear Jim's comment that 2 days after an inspection, a biannual inspection, or semi-annual inspection, the thing got hit by a hailstorm or a tornado, and we have no cause to go in there for 2 years.
Yeah, I heard the weather. I heard the extreme weather event scenario,
Right.
and I guess you could put in a clause or language that says, unless of a catastrophic event, which in the township's best estimate requires another inspection. I mean, we could throw something like that in there if you wanted to legislate around those sort of outlier events.
And that's why I wanted to move back up to where we talked about. I thought that would be in the section where we do biannual inspections, not under decommissioning.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, that would work. Yeah.
it would be like a 12D as in dog. We would add.
Okay, here it is.
Unless you wanted to add it to append the 12B. I think it should be its own separate thing if the township's going to go in there.
So if it's a building and the building is deemed to be dangerous, an imminent collapse, what rights does the township have to go on private property and determine that?
That's true.
I believe we have rights, right?
Well, you
Yeah.
have to provide notice
With notice.
to the property owner, I suspect. But your order, I suspect these are going to be issued after a conditional use hearing, is my recollection. And so the condition of the conditional use approval might be, reasonable inspections, with appropriate notice by the township. I think we're getting into an area that you're, and I'm just going to give you my opinion as a lawyer and a draftsman with respect. I think you're over complicating the ordinance itself. This isn't going to be a situation where a guy's going to wander in, pay $100 and get a permit and go to town. This is going to require inspections. It's going to require appearances in front of the board. So by putting a lot of these sorts of what if provisions, you may be gumming it up a bit. I don't think you may do so if you wish, but I think it begins to pour syrup, so to speak, into the language and may make it difficult for someone to administer. That's just my view as a draftsman.
I think if,
There's a couple of
Jeff,
cute,
if you go
a
down,
couple of cute northern New Jersey euphemisms in that advice, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
if you go down, I think there is, can you go down to where that red line was? I think the system ceases operating would
Yeah,
be a mechanism by which, it would be, it would be it could be contentious, but I don't see that as it being any different than, if a building is, it could potentially collapse. I believe the township, I could be wrong, but I believe the township zoning officer has the right to determine that.
Right, Chuck, I agree. I don't know how else would you have a notice of violation if the township zoning or code official can't get in there? Who would give that notice of violation?
So I think we're covered. Even in the case of a catastrophe. The
I think
township
if
would
we're,
simply say, the system has ceased operating at that point. Does that make sense?
So let's play this out. You referenced the hailstorm, but let's say we had an unusual tornado came in and just tore it all up. I mean, there's no physical ability for the arrays to operate. You would say it ceased to operate, which would your view be that it ceases to operate, therefore it needs to be decommissioned, or would the view be that's sort of a discretionary judgment call that's made by the code enforcement officer? I don't think that's necessarily an NOV, simply because there's a weather event. I think we're getting, personally, this is my legal view, we're getting way outside of what ordinances are supposed to do. If there's discretion under enforcement, then we don't need to legislate for every conceivable possibility. So I
can
would
I
say
ask
to
if-
you, a weather event that destroys every solar array is not the definition of ceases to operate, which would automatically require an NOV and then a 6-month decommissioning. I would say you've had damage done to property, they can fix it. You would say, please get this fixed. They would say, okay, we'd like to get this fixed. We got to put in an insurance claim. It's the same thing we would do if our house suffered from a fire. I wish I was there with
Yeah.
you guys. It would be easier for me to express
Yeah,
an immediate reference to the document. I apologize for not being there. It's difficult for me to help you draft under these circumstances.
I think that.
Go ahead,
I
Chuck.
think- I think it's very helpful. I think we're good. I think that what you've drafted, I think we're thinking through all these, but I think we keep coming back to the same, that A as it's written is good. Does anybody else see differently?
Yeah, so far I'm with you, Chuck.
Yeah, and actually, if a tornado goes through and they intend on curing it, then it's not a violation and a failure to cure. They're going to cure the situation, so there's no reason then to decommission it. So I think what you're saying is right, that what's there probably works. Chances of that are pretty slim, but I think even in that case, it would work.
So can we move on beyond 16?
Yep.
Good.
I'll say, I think Guy got me over this too, because if it's a weather event, like let's just say a tornado hit the back corner of this thing and took it out, and it couldn't, some of the solar panels are working, but it couldn't get power to anywhere. That would give our code official, just like if a corner of a house caught on fire, it would give our code official the opportunity to go view it, I believe, right?
Yes,
Okay, that's what gets me through it. Okay, as long as we have the ability to get in there, we would know if a tornado hit, right?
I would hope.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm sure Guy would love to stay on with us more, but you
I just
let-
want to see how long you can hold the phone up, Jeff.
well, that's me. Yeah.
All right.
You'll all be asleep before I have to put this phone down.
Thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
That's all right, and I'll take a look at what the final product, and if I see anything that maybe I thought I missed in this conversation, I'll alert Jeff, and he can put you on notice.
Thank you, young man. Thank you.
All right, see you,
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, if we can scroll up from 16. Good, or down. Yeah, whatever.
Here we have end of life issues or useful life. I don't know, because we haven't identified a useful life, so I don't know how to deal with that.
The plan for decommissioning the system at the. Can you just reference the paragraph where we said cease operating or failure to solve violation? Or plan.
We just use the same terms as we used above, the same term.
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, I have a problem with it. It's just that it's vague. So
So please, guys, repeat it for me. What are we doing for D3 on page 7? I think it's page 7.
I think we're looking at D2,
Two.
plan for decommissioning the system after,
What is that?
was
It
it
just says
ceasing
and.
operations?
How about if we just say as referenced in 16A?
that's what I was just going to say the
that-
same thing. That makes
Did-
sense.
Got it.
You got it, Jeff?
Yep.
What does
Great.
2 say? Because it just ends with the word and.
Well, I think that's because of the triple I. It wants to have the estimated cost also for decommissioning when it's being approved for conditional use. All those things have to be in there. Just tying all three together.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, I don't think the and should be in there. There's not an and after the first.
Well, I think D ends in shall. Maybe D should end in shall identify and then 1, the useful life of the system, how the useful, B, the plan for decommission, and remove C, and 3, the estimated cost. The way it's written is a little wonky.
Okay.
So just,
That sounds good. Do you have that, Jeff?
I don't, to be honest.
In the first I, instead of starting that with identify, move the word identify after shall with a semicolon. So the applicant shall identify
the useful life of the system, the plan for
right.
decommissioning, and remove the and at the end of section D2, just because it's unnecessary.
Right.
And probably the semicolon after calculated.
So that they're all individual clauses.
Mhm.
Got it.
And then we're getting rid of, every time it says useful life, aren't we using a different term?
I think in this, in one or I, single I, it's
Oh,
just to
okay.
provide information to the conditional use, but then get rid of it in double I and refer back to, what was it, 16A, Jim?
Yes, 16A.
So the plan for decommissioning the system as referenced in 16A.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you.
I think, would we add the same thing in triple I?
That's what I was just thinking.
As reference, and get rid of the end of its useful life and put as referenced in 16A.
Yeah.
Got it.
Good, we're all good with D?
Yep.
Let's
Yep.
move on.
The end.
So Jeff, unfortunately, what I heard is Guy's gonna recommend sending this back to the county.
Yes.
I didn't hear that.
Here's what I would like to do, with your permission. Let Guy and I, and I'll either choose you, Dave, or John Gontars, or whoever wants to volunteer. We'll make those changes. Make sure everyone on the planning commission is okay, and then we'll determine if it needs to go back to Chester County Planning. From what Guy talked to me about this evening, I unfortunately think it does. I wish it didn't, but I want to make sure our planning commission's fine with it before sending it to Chester County Planning if we need to.
Is the biggest issue the issue of every 2 years versus 3 to 5? Is that going to be the big issue?
Guy was telling me that the biggest issue is the AR district, because we're allowing it in AR where they're suggesting we limit it.
England is going crazy with solar, and they have 2030 they're supposed to go to 0 CO2, and politically the energy side wants to put solar on every piece of farmland possible because that's the cheapest place to put it. In the ag area, they're saying we don't want to do that because it's going to compromise our ability to generate food. So it's really coming down to a political issue in the UK, where it's much further along than we are. And that's what it's probably going to wind up being here. I don't know how to deal with that.
But I was telling John this before, but just I have a close relationship with the Amish community, and throughout Chester County and Lancaster County, they are inundated with offers for solar farms on their crop farm or on their cropland. So I know they are sought after quite a bit, the Amish.
Wasn't it the county that forwarded us examples of agriculture underneath the solar panels
Yes,
in conjunction with the solar panels?
yes.
In England, where they've made the same argument, what they've said is the only suitable crop, if you want to call it a crop, is grazing sheep under solar panels. That the other applications don't make sense. Now, sheep farming is not a big industry in the States, and it's actually becoming a smaller industry worldwide. So if that's the best they can do, it's not a good argument.
So what do you think, guys? Make these revisions, get them back to you, make sure everyone's okay.
So I have two questions. Are we all right not making any changes, and we're telling the county we're going to keep it available in AR? The other is, if we know it's going back to the county, do we want to use Zach's Latin for 3 years instead of biannual? And then we don't have to hear that comment back from the county. Or if we're happy with biannual, I'm fine with it. I'm just bringing it up.
I don't have a problem with 2 or 3 years if that gets around some of these other issues. Would 3 years keep it here?
To be honest with you, John, I think it's the AR designation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm grasping from the county's letter and from Guy.
I thought the county's letter went even further and said that it should be restricted to like light industrial zones or something like that.
Yes, yes,
Which, I mean, essentially for us means that there'll be no solar, period.
correct.
So
Do we have to listen to them?
Nope. The recommendations.
a recommendation.
I feel like that's a political statement on their part that we already considered.
Politics are a big part of this, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we're in Pennsylvania, we get our own local say. And we've already decided AR's fine.
Mhm.
Yep.
Why
So
are we
I think-
kicking it- why are
I think
kicking
we send it
up to
back the way
county?
we have it now, Jeff, with cleaning up some language.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yes,
Is
sir.
everybody okay with that?
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Good.
I have one thing, Mr. Chairman, that Stacy brought up early on in the meeting before you came on. Our planning commission meeting in January is January 2nd. I don't imagine that you guys want to come in on January 2nd. Maybe you do. Do you want to postpone that to January 9th?
I have no issues either way, I don't think, myself.
I'm
If-
fine
And
with it.
and if it interferes with Stacy and Jeff, I'm happy to do it on the night. I'm just saying I don't have any issues either way.
I'm the same. I'm flexible.
Mark,
Let me see. Let me look at the calendar here real quick.
Is that considered like a holiday, Jeff, the 2nd?
in municipal world, usually people are off the first, second, and third. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Like the world pretty much slows down in the municipal world that week.
Well, let's do it the 9th.
Let's
Is
do it
everybody
tonight.
all right
Maybe
with the
wait a
ninth?
second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, there's one last thing is Donna said when this finally goes to the Board of Supervisors, she'd like to have the red line version as well as the final version.
Yep.
And we're not there yet because we got to go through the county, but if for some reason we decide we don't have to go to the county, then we'll have a red line version that could be a final version. But I guess we'll still have to have our January meeting to approve that, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Before I adjourn, Jeff, I wanted to just ask you about, was it Woods Edge? You mentioned last meeting.
Great. We don't have anything officially yet. My understanding is that they are going to submit at some point a new set of plans. They had wanted us to look at 12-plus-year-old plans and then alert them as to what's changed in their ordinances. And I gave them Dr. Hoffman's answer, no. So,
We can all give them our prevailing wage, you know,
right, right.
to do the review. But-
So, you know, if you're asking me to guess, and it's a total guess, you might see it in February. I don't know. I don't anticipate January, but stranger things have happened.
Okay. The only reason I asked you was that it was in our minutes last month, so.
No, I would rather you guys ask questions. Great.
So
Yeah.
I don't know anything about, I don't think I was on the board at this time. I don't know anything about this. Can I get a heads up as to where it's located, or even can you send out the previous?
Chuck, I'd be happy to send out some previous review letters. Happy to do that for you.
Is it off Bullock Road? Bullock?
No, sir.
No.
This would be up, if you can imagine, up by Connor's Mill Road, Blair Road. Up in that direction. It borders London Grove Township and New London Township. So when we look at it, we've always done this for our neighbors. If something borders another township, we send them a set of plans too. So they're involved. Because it may or may not cause extra traffic on one of their roads or something for them to consider. So it's just a courtesy.
Anything else on Woods Edge? Any public comment?
I do have a question about so I still have an old link. So I had set it up so that I could use that link over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And then that failed. Can I use the link that you sent out for tonight's? Is that good again? Can I copy that to other dates?
What we're going to end up doing, Chuck, I would imagine, and you guys don't have to decide tonight, but I would imagine going forward next year, you're probably going to want the meetings on Thursday night at 7:00. So once the new year comes around, Stacy and I are getting much better with Zoom and invitations. We'll make that a recurring event. So you'll have something for all of 2025. You know, once you gentlemen say, Jeff, it's the first Thursday, and we're keeping it the same.
Awesome.
Unless you want to tell us that now unofficially, that's up to you.
If you want to get working on it, I think we'll keep it the same, but
All right, no dissents. Okay. Stacy and I have our marching orders.
all right, we'll adjourn at 7:59, quick before the minute changes.
So nice to see all of you. Thank you.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
holiday.